Hi, everyone. Welcome to Your Virtual Coffee, the web show which introduces you to great local businesses in the local Denver metro area. My guest today is Tom Cross, Executive Director for Social Streaming TV. Social Streaming TV is a private label integrated social media, live and on-demand video streaming virtual events platform. Virtual events will be the new technology medium as businesses move towards virtual rather than meeting in person. And with that said, Tom, welcome to my show.
Thank you, Gina. Glad to be here.
Tom, we like to do business with people we like, we know, we trust. So if it's all right with you, could I let my audience get to know you a little bit?
Absolutely.
What are your hobbies?
You asked that before, and I kind of unchecked that box. But I guess if I have a hobby, it's watching old movies. And if you want to ask my all-time favorite old movie, which I just sent someone today to read because the script is the best in the world. It's more Shakespearean than anything else. And you'll never guess the movie, but it stars the Duke. It stars Dino, Ricky Nelson, Walter Brennan, Ward Bond, and the all-time all-beautiful Angie Dickinson. Do you want to guess what it's called?
That one's not Ocean's 8,
No.
is it? Okay. So what is it?
I'll give you a hint. It's a Western. And you're going, a Western is the all-time greatest movie. You've got to read the dialogue. And I think that's the whole point about content is that, people are struggling to find good content out there. And so the movie's called Rio Bravo, and I'd highly recommend it because you've got to watch at least 20 times to really see the nuances of how great John Wayne is with, Dean Martin, Ricky Nelson, and all the rest of them. It's a Western. There's the good, bad, and the ugly in the whole thing, but it's a great movie. And I can recommend, 300 or 400 others, but that's a good start.
Speaking of old movies, I just watched On the Waterfront the other night and really liked it. I really liked the story. And you could tell definitely the music was Leonard Bernstein. It's like it sounded a lot like West Side Story, the music for West Side Story. But I like movies that tell a good story. And I love movies that have ensemble cast because it gives an opportunity for different people to shine rather than the lone wolf kind of movie. And so that's what it sounds like Rio Bravo is that you have an ensemble cast in that.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting. There's a dialogue in there that'll make you laugh, make you cry, make you feel and completely in awe of the acting capabilities of these people. But you bring up one other point. Music is by Tiomkin, and I'm a big music fan. When you look at the great ones out there, Max Steiner, who did Casablanca and so many others, Korngold, who did Robin Hood, the Seahawks, and others. And Bernard Herrmann, and people don't give much credit, but can you imagine Psycho without the seriously, that movie would have been kind of dull and boring if it hadn't been for that. And that's from Bernard Herrmann.
That's really interesting. The one thing I know about Psycho is that, well, two things. The sound of, I don't know how else to put it, the stabbing was they used casabas. That was the sound, the melons. They wanted that sound in the shower scene.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing is that they used chocolate syrup to simulate, or chocolate drink, some kind of chocolate drink to simulate what was blood. And spoiler alert, for my audience members, if you haven't seen Psycho, you should, and it will freak you out. And oh yeah, we just talked about the movie, so there's stabbing going on.
We can spend all day talking about Rebecca, Rear Window.
That's a great one. I think Hitchcock is really good at telling a story. Yeah, I thought Rebecca was really good. I thought it was really, really good. I also thought Rear Window, Dial M for Murder.
Suspicion.
Yeah, I just think that he
to catch
was
a thief.
he was, and to put Jimmy Stewart in a movie like that, like Rear Window, that's the one he's in, right? Rear Window?
Correct.
Yeah. Um,
Well, wait a second. You forgot Grace Kelly.
well, yeah, but
Sorry.
that's okay. But I mean, I'm going in thinking, wow, I'm thinking, this is the guy from It's a Wonderful Life playing someone who's not exactly, that character. And I think that's kind of interesting to see that. I mean, for me, also,
Well,
you
see,
haven't even mentioned Joan Crawford.
well, Joan comes in, when you look at the genre of different kind of people, it's kind of like I was just reading, and if anybody's interested, I just read the biography of Jack Warner and Warner Brothers.
Hmm.
So you kind of get a whole flavor for a genre of characters, and you kind of get into Errol Flynn, Ann Sheridan, Alexis Smith. You kind of go all these different directions to talk about things. But Jimmy Stewart was also in The Rope, The Man Who Knew Too Much, and other Hitchcock movies. But so was Cary Grant.
Hmm.
North by Northwest is my mother's all-time favorite movie.
It is a great movie.
And it starts out with this very powerful Bernard Herrmann, score that knocks you out, very strong, powerful stuff. So meanwhile, I'm a big fan of, you're right. The story is the best start. If you got a bad story, it's not going to go anywhere. And so, you can see in the background, some of the books I've written. I've written about, 13 books, and my latest was Mind Meld on AI. And so I think that when people start to look at artificial intelligence, it's not just about making things that are smarter or better or whatever. It's also telling a good story about what. And my favorite story about AI was that some time ago, Pacific Gas and Electric, they have a lot of, oddly enough, a lot of water dams. They're most notorious for all their other stuff they've done, but they've got a lot of dams. And so the so-called dam expert was to retire. And they wanted it. So they hired all these knowledge experts to go out and build an AI system around this dam expert. And so they followed him around for 2 months, and they couldn't figure out what he knew. So there's a lot of human knowledge that no one knows what they know until they know it, and then they can't really tell you how they know it. So you have to put that in context for where we're going. And I think going back to this kind of thing of the virtual events is to me is changing things in two significantly different ways. In the sense is that it's basically flattening the earth geographically wise. Because think about it, virtual, trade shows and all the rest of stuff, whether it be Mobile World Congress, Consumer Electronic shows, all the big shows, who didn't want to go to Barcelona, or, well, Las Vegas can be a different issue. But the idea is that these shows are going to be more all virtual, in the sense is that thousands and thousands of people couldn't go, couldn't afford to go, didn't have time to go, couldn't, their boss wouldn't let them go. They had a family vacation, 10,000 other reasons. And so when you think about how we change the paradigm of virtual events, it opens up this whole idea that people can go from anywhere globally. And so when you think even the Boulder Museum can market their services globally, changes the way you start to think about museums. And that's one of the targets for our software is basically museums, because don't tell anybody, Gina, but museums don't move. you know
Well,
it,
the word that came to mind as you were talking about that is reach, where instead of reaching people in the community, like you said, you can go globally. Your reach automatically by going virtual can go globally, which
absolutely.
magnifies, your customer base or your client base.
Well, think about it in a different way. Even if you could move the Louvre to Kansas, people wouldn't go because they want to go to Paris to see the Louvre, right? Same
Right.
thing with Notre Dame and a lot of other things. But also keep in mind that by offering virtual streaming services, live tours of your museum, people who might want to go to your museum live might get a look at what your museum is all about. In other words, the Boulder University, CU Boulder's got a museum, but no one's ever heard of it. So there's a whole aspect of museum marketing and promotion of, even in simple terms. Let me give you a walkthrough of what we do every month. And so it really opens it up to people who are unable to go, whether they're handicapped or visually, whatever reason. But it's also allows people to be more creative about what they do with their museum, because, the Louvre is going to be the Louvre forever. But on the other hand, the idea of having a local museum talk about history, and there's a lot of historical museums out there for whatever reason, Civil War, state parks, etc. That people get a glimpse of. Oh, really? Maybe I should really like to go there, and it brings the people closer and flattens the whole process out. The second aspect of it, which people I don't think are really getting, and don't tell anybody that, is time. In the sense is that trade shows were all based on a certain time. CES was always in January, right? Consumer Electronics Show, Mobile World Congress in Barcelona was typically in February, whatever. And so a lot of trade shows were all organized around time. And so the idea that you went physically, you had to set your travel and all the rest of the stuff to go to Miami in February, which is not a bad thing anyway, but we don't have to do that anymore. And I think that's the harder part of the fact, is that we're going to change the way trade shows are going to be continuous. They're going to be on demand. And here's the example. No, don't tell anybody about this either, but I suspect there's a little bit of excess office space that people have these days, And so I bet so the idea is that, one company just spent $300,000 on their trade show booth, sitting in a warehouse. Well, take that out of the warehouse and bring it into the excess office space that we might have, and set up a company corporate demonstration. So you've got the trade show already set up in the office. So when Gina calls up and says, "Hey, tell me about your stuff, because I can't go to wherever your trade show is," they go, "No problem. Here's Fred. He's going to give you a demonstration of this. He can do all the things that you could do at a time-based trade show on demand." And I think that's what's really exciting, is we change the whole idea of time and distance in trade shows and make them all virtual. And I think that the real hard thing is that what I find is that a lot of people are going to kind of go, "When's things going to get back to normal?" And and one CEO told me, he says, "We're not going back. We're not going back." He says, "If you started a business today, Tom and Gina, you'd start it virtually, right? Just like we're doing right now.
Right.
We don't ever have to really meet physically. We get our stuff done, and we get the business done. We grow the business." And so the idea of, he said, we're not going to get Amazoned. And for those of you who don't remember, why that term comes from the fact is that Amazon changed the whole, changed the industry completely, retail, shopping, everything. And a lot of businesses were put out of business. And we know a lot of businesses, especially bookstores, et cetera, have suffered from it. And so the idea is that there's going to be businesses started today virtually that are going to grow, and they're going to be the next Amazons out there. Maybe Amazon's still going to be around, but there's going to be a lot of virtual businesses that grow. And this guy said, "Look, even we think our competitors are going to do this, and even if they don't, we want to be ahead of them." So he's not waiting around for people to kind of go virtual. We're going to go do this. We're not going to go back. And that's the other key point, is that, time has changed, distance has changed, and strategy has changed. We're not going to go back to the way things were.
Now, you've kind of touched on this, Tom, but I kind of want to break it down for my audience. I'm a business owner that relies on trade shows. What's an issue that keeps me up at night, and how does social streaming TV solve that issue?
Well, the idea that, everything is based around time and distance, in the sense is that you ramp up to a trade show and you ramp down from a trade show. And the sense is that we can offer think about this. Customers don't just go, especially, and I think about this as we'll call larger business, small business or larger business. And larger business is probably more than 20 people. That's how some AT&T used to define it. So larger business is all based around time and distance. So the idea is that when you look at the way enterprise customers buy things, it's not based on March or May or July. They base it on when they need the product. And so they're continually evaluating products all the time. And so to wait for a trade show or wait for this event to happen, et cetera, is nonsense. And so the idea that if I was building products, I want to go, look, I'm going to make my sales force we teach these classes on virtual sales.
Could you elaborate a little bit on these classes that you put on, and where business owners out there or people, professionals could go to
Right.
view them?
Okay. So I wrote the first book on teleconferencing a long time ago, and we found, as we've got this other slide out here, and maybe I should show you this because this kind of sets the stage for where we're at. Okay, so hang on a second. The audience today will get a giggle out of this. If you're boring face to face, you're still going to be boring by video, and technology only makes you look worse.
That's true. With the advent of virtual meetings and stuff like that, it's kind of funny to realize what works and what really doesn't.
It really doesn't work.
So I think this is the perfect one to describe describe what a virtual meeting.
And so the idea that I think that we need to have the face-to-face part. I don't deny that. But when you talk about a lot of problems that people have in business, it's really about problems. The bricks aren't here, the cement's here, the building's on fire next door, the construction accident, a lot of issues that people face are based on documents. Legal industry is all based on documents, right? And so they're not looking at you, the courtroom experience, okay, we can play Charles Lawton and witness for the prosecution, but but the idea that people are looking at the documents, they're looking at what is your content, going back to content. And so you can't just hand wave your through an enterprise software sale or cloud sale. And so you have to have your presentation skills honed and better. Another key point about enterprise software sales, or any really enterprise sales, is that you never know who you're talking to is involved in the decision. They'll never be involved. You never know. They won't be known. And that's the reason why a lot of these events, people wouldn't want to go to the event, but they don't want to be known. There are people there who actually there to steal your product. They're doing competitive intelligence on your product.
Or reverse engineer it.
To reverse engineer it. This friend of mine, he went to a trade show one time, and the guy finally said, "Are you trying to buy this thing or build it?" He's kind of caught. But the idea that there's a lot of people there doing competitive intelligence to see what your strategy is. So the other side of it is that the person when person calls up and says, "Hey, Gina, tell me more about your cool solution out there," that may be a junior analyst, that may be a business analyst. That person may not even be on the committee. They're part of a committee or doing work for the director who reports to the CIO, who reports to the CEO. And you're not going to be involved in those decisions, especially if you got $1 million sale out there, you're not even in the room. And so that's really important. And when I talk about content and putting things together, and this is what we teach in this class, virtual sales professionals, you got to have your content for, oh, Gina, oh, you're the CEO. Okay, we need to have a special kind of messaging content for you. Oh, Gina, you're the CFO. Okay, well, we're going to give you ROI, TCO, FinTech, all this other kind of financial stuff to make sure that you're really comfortable with this business decision. Oh, you're the CIO. You want to make sure that if you heard the term DFU, you're not going to screw up. Right? It's going to work all the time, and I get to sleep at night, because that's what IT people want to do. They don't care about the money. They want to get some sleep at night. So you got to have your content in these classes. And it goes back to the streaming part, in the sense is that if you do, again, the great story, you brought it up, is you set the agenda. It's all about a great story. If you got a great story and people are professional actors, hey, you're the manager, you're the expert, you're the leader, you're the professional. Everybody knows where their role is. It will be successful. But what happens is that people show up and throw up at these meetings, and they wonder why people aren't buying their products. And it's got to change. It's got to change. And we teach these people how to do that. And whether it be the sales classes or just the virtual, just the events part, we just can't go back to, waving our hands and bad PowerPoint presentations. We've got hundreds and hundreds of slides to help people be better presenters of any kind of fashion.
Tom, let's talk about power partners. For our audience, power partners are those businesses who target the same ideal client that you do, but are not your competition. An example I love to use is a real estate broker and a mortgage broker. Mm-hmm. They both target that potential or future homeowner, and so they work together on those deals and sometimes refer clients back and forth. So let's get first an idea of who your ideal client is. So Tom, go ahead.
Okay, the ideal client, which I've kind of focused in on would be, we're talking to the University of Colorado Conference Center. That's going to be more complex. They used to do 1,000 conferences a year. I don't know if they're doing any right now because of the university being closed down. But I also focus in, very excited about, like I said, museums. And I think it's museums, and another little company out of Illinois called Taylor Studios does this. They build exhibits for visitors and museums and corporate stuff. They give demonstration centers, etc. So I think the ideal customer would be any kind of, and I think it could be Stephen Tebow's, car museum in Boulder. I haven't talked to him yet, but why not have anything that people have that has interesting content to it, like a library's got a special book section. It could be anybody who's got a collection of art or things they want to talk about, more on a continuous basis. So this isn't just kind of Instagram picture show or a TikTok thing. It's more like, okay, we want to be more professional about this, and so we want to do it on demand, and we want to do it on a regular basis. We're also talking to somebody about doing like this thing, a bicycle thing. Is that Friday at 5? Alan's going to be riding the range in Colorado, and at 6 o'clock we're going to see Joe from Atlanta ride the range in Atlanta. So there's a lot of ways that you can use virtual streaming. I think it makes it more exciting if you kind of put them together, produce them well with good content and good story. Cooking shows obviously would be a good one, but I think museums offer a lot of long-term value and content because they were built for a reason, and they're sustain themselves for a reason.
Okay, so using that, let's say museums, as your ideal client, for example, I'm thinking a great power partner for you would be event planners, because usually they still need help planning the event, whether it's in person or virtual. Would that be correct?
Event planners are interesting in the sense is that there are millions of meetings out there, and there are obviously, I've been a member of MPI for a long time, and I think that meeting planners are professionals, are serious about their meeting planners, whether it be a corporate board meeting or a retreat or an annual sales meeting or all the thousands of other kinds of things that exist out there. Some of those aren't really suited for live streaming. On the other hand, to me, a regularly scheduled event that has now gone virtual, that we want to do on a continuous basis, is an ideal partner. So yes, event planners, people who put together or produce kinds of events. And like I said, people who produce content for, a specific kind of, like I said, museum or college or somebody like that who wants to have a continuous base, like the World Affairs Conference in Boulder, annual event that could be continuous. Instead of having one time, you have it continuously every Friday at 5. We're going to have bring together a lot of people. We're going to give a live stream about this kind of content, and people can participate. It's not intended to be kind of like kind of a breakout rooms, etc. It's intended to be a little bit more like television is for, those kinds of events where you're going to stream out, here's the event, and people can either save it, record it, archive it, and then feedback to the presenter.
Tom, what's the best way for that business owner who's just heard you talking about, virtual events? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, our website is called socialstreamingtv.com. We can give you some demonstrations. One of the other things that I would like to add to that is also people can use our technology on their smartphones. We have the option that people can use both cameras. In other words, they show the user, show the picturesque event, right? So that's really a lot of fun. It's kind of like everybody can be their own newscaster. And so we're kind of expanding the world out there. And I like to think of as that, you can add content to our website. We have a social purpose in the sense that people can build their own social streaming efforts out there to move away from traditional media. We're finding in some cases, religious groups and others, nonprofits, etc., don't want to be on the traditional social media platforms for obvious reasons. And they want to build their own social media presence. And that's the social part of the social streaming TV. It's not just a streaming service. The second key part of this is we build this on their website. If you look to channelpartner.tv, we're building that for them. We built the next site that just went live today is UCX Market Live, ucxmarketlive.com. So our approach is to go, hey, Gino, how'd you like to have this on your website? And you can produce your own events. And then, you don't have to worry about people making money on your content. yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit more, but on the other hand, you don't have to worry about what else is on that platform.
Well, Tom, you've given us a lot to think about. Business owners, if you want to know more information, reach out to Tom directly. Tom, thank you for coming on my show.
Thank you, Gina.
And thank you, audience, for joining us on Your Virtual Coffee. We could not do this show without you. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe. There should be a subscribe button right here at the bottom.
Thank you.
And at Your Virtual Coffee, we love business professionals. So business people, let's talk. Have a great day, and thank you. Your Virtual Coffee is sponsored by Ventola Law. Ventola Law, mediation and legal representation at an expert level. You can find them at ventolalaw.com. Thanks for joining me today. For more information on Your Virtual Coffee, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wait for it, our website at yourvirtualcoffee.com. Thanks again for watching, and have an incredible day.